So let's see how this theory of VPK has been translated to successful clinical practice. Because they have understood human system based on VPK, they have brought in all factors which play a role in health and disease onto the same platform of VPK. Be it plants, animals, these are part of our diet and also used for making medicines, or food ingredients, environment, lifestyle activities. All these play a role in health and disease. And the clinical symptoms, everything speaks the same language of VPK. Again, without going into the nitty-gritty details, let me give you all an idea about how this classification has been done. All physical substances, it can be plants, it can be minerals, it can be metals, it can be milk, it can be water, vegetables, fruits, the spices that we eat, that we use in our cuisine, all are classified in terms of the 6 tastes. These are called rasa: sweet, sour, salt, hot, bitter, astringent. These in turn are classified in terms of VPK. So for example, something with a sweet taste, modern chemistry will say that it has so much carbohydrates or fats or sugars in it. These are all structural entities. This kind of understanding is again in tune with its fundamental philosophy of reductionism. Ayurveda does not have this nuanced information, but it can tell you something much more important. It can tell you what it does in the system. So something with a sweet taste will increase K and decrease P and V. In other words, a sweet taste substance will increase certain functions and parameters and will decrease certain other functions and parameters. So this is a thumb rule for all the home remedies. What we call grandma's remedies, this is what is used. All the mothers and grandmothers knew this. A simple example, let's take wet cough and cold. By the way, the word cough is from the word kapha. So when kapha increases, the clinical symptom is wet cough and cold. We should not have anything that increases kapha, and we should have things which decreases K. So look at the taste which increases K: sweet, sour and salt. These tastes have to be avoided. Look at the ones which decrease K: hot, bitter and astringent. So adding a dash of haldi, turmeric or pepper or ginger is based on this, because they fall under this hot, bitter and astringent category. So this is how all substances are understood. This is just an example of how systematically the categorization has been carried out. Over 5,000 plant parts. They have not left any parts of the plant: root, root bark, stem, stem bark, pith, leaf, bud, flower, seed, fruit, rind of fruit, etc., etc., etc. They have been individually categorized according to the taste. It is phenomenal work that the ancient Indians have done. In a way, it's not surprising, because we are talking of a system which has been working on this for 5,000 years. Not all parts of the plant need have medicinally useful activity. So the medicinally useful parts of a plant have also been identified, and they have been analyzed for their effects on VPK. These have been very systematically documented. This is just an example of how the classification has been carried out. Terminale chebula, which is in Hindi it's called harad. The medicinally useful part is the fruit. You see the information given by Ayurveda. There are 5 tastes associated with the fruit. The seed, marrow covering the seed, which is a very, very fine part, ridges at its attachment, bark of the nut, each of these have different tastes. So the question of working out the taste is, in my opinion, is not simply tasting and telling what the taste is. I have tried to isolate these parts and try to taste it. You can't feel any of these tastes. So it's not a question of tasting and telling. So they must have had a very systematic methodology. We do not know what kind of methodology was used. A typical example I always give is honey. Honey, I don't think there would be any second opinion that it is sweet in taste, right? But it doesn't come under the sweet category, it comes under the astringent category. Because the pharmacological action from an Ayurvedic perspective is that of an astringent taste. The kind of pharmacological activity that honey has. So it's not a question of, I'm sure, taste as a chemical sense would have played a role, major role, but then they seem to have gone beyond it, and it's a functional classification. They also give a lot of information about what happens if a particular taste is used in excess. For example, excess use of sweet taste impairs kapha, and it results in a number of diseases. You can see some familiar names: obesity, diabetes, adhesion and block in vessels, and so on. So this kind of detailed information is given for all the 6 tastes. So much about how physical substances are understood in terms of taste. Activities are also understood, classified in terms of VPK. Activity, physical activity, exercise increases vata. Exercising in hot weather, exercising at 12 noon will increase pitta as well. Happy frame of mind, a sedentary life will increase K. So when I say VP and K are increased or decreased, please remember that it's certain functions and parameters which are increased or decreased. Stress, strain and worry increases vata. Negative emotions like jealousy and anger will increase pitta. All clinical symptoms are also classified in terms of VPK. Couple of examples. If it's a shifting pain, but you see here how this theory of VPK is used for diagnosis. From the symptoms, the causative factor is worked out. The causative factor of the disease is an imbalance in VPK. The clinical symptoms are connected with the causative factor. That's how Ayurveda treats the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem, according to Ayurveda, is an imbalance in VPK. In fact, they can even go further back. They can identify the diet and lifestyle activities which would have caused this imbalance. So from the symptoms, they identify the root cause of the problem and treat the root cause of the problem, which is why a good Ayurvedic doctor diagnosing the disease properly, and as long as the disease is not in a very, very chronic stage, this doctor can give you a complete recovery. There will not be recurrence of the disease because the causative factors are taken care of. That's what is addressed. So there is always a question when Ayurvedic doctors say they can handle like dengue or chikungunya or any of the diseases which were not known, in the times of Charaka and Sushruta. And the questions are always asked, and people are justified in asking these questions, that how can Ayurvedic doctors claim to be able to treat a disease which was not known even 20-30 years ago. For example, chikungunya. This virus has taken a different avatar in the past maybe 20-30 years. The answer is simple. They have the theory of VPK and they apply this theory and they can make the diagnosis. So this is like, the simple theory of addition, subtraction and multiplication which we all study in primary school. You don't have to know all the complex problems that you can apply it to. As and when a problem is given, you can apply these simple theories. So in the same way, VPK is a simple theory which can address the complexity, which addresses the complexity of the human system. Seasons are also understood, classified in terms of VPK. So this is a circa-annual rhythm. You can see that as the seasons change, there are 6 seasons: summer, rainy season, autumn, early winter, late winter, and spring. As the seasons change, you can see that there are changes in VP and K. In other words, if you can sync your diet and lifestyle activities in sync with the changing seasons, you can avoid many of the seasonal diseases. We should not have the same diet and lifestyle activities throughout the year. This kind of do's and don'ts were inbuilt into our traditional cuisine and practices. So this is called Ritucharya. Ritu means seasons and Charya refers to regimen. So these are seasonal regimens which, if we follow, will help us avoid many of the seasonal diseases. Now this is circadian rhythm. So Ayurveda talks not only of circa-annual rhythm, it also talks of circadian rhythm, which is over a 24-hour cycle, which is what happens in a day. So you can see that as the day progresses, there are changes in VPK. In other words, if we sync our daily activities in sync with this, we can have a very satisfactory and a productive and a happy and a relaxing day. So there is a time to eat, there is a time to sleep, there is a time which is congenial for mental activities, and if we sync with these changes, then we can have a very happy and productive day. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that the 2017 medicine Nobel Prize for Medicine went for work on circadian rhythm. The names of the 3 American scientists are here. And Ayurveda not only talks of circadian rhythm, it gives you practical methods to adopt it in your day-to-day activities. So you will see this question popping up once again. So VPK provides the conceptual framework for all the psychosomatic life processes. So when based on the clinical symptoms, the disease is diagnosed as VP or K. It can be a combination. It can be a disease involving Vata Pitta or Pitta Kapha or Vata Kapha, or involving all the 3 doshas. Once the diagnosis is made, all these factors are made use of to give the treatment. So plants, let's say that based on the clinical symptoms is the Vata predominant disease, plants which decrease Vata are used for making medicines. Food items which decrease Vata are prescribed. Food items which increase Vata are to be avoided. Lifestyle activities which increase Vata have to be avoided. The ones which decrease Vata will be prescribed. And the seasons, the Ayurvedic treatment is very dynamic. The medicines which are given during summer will not be given to the same patient in winter. So it's a very dynamic treatment because we have seen the relation between VPK and the environment as well. So the treatment in Ayurveda is very comprehensive. Diet and lifestyle activities is the first line of treatment in all diseases because this is considered the causative reason for the disease. In fact, in modern medicine also, when dreaded diseases like cancer, they are coming into the ambit of diet and lifestyle related, right? And then there are internal medicines, there are procedures called Panchakarma, there are external applications as well, and of course yoga is prescribed when and where required. You will see this question popping up here because modern medicine is beginning to realize the importance of diet and lifestyle activities.